Hey you guys, what's up? You found your way to the I'd Rather Anime podcast, and we are your hosts. I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Ben.
And this is your place to catch up on all things anime, new and old, with a lovely addition of our opinions, thoughts, and banter. You know you could be doing other things, but we know you'd rather anime with us.
All right, we're back. 2 weeks in a row, getting back to this consistency with this podcasting thing again. Glad to be with you guys again. This week, we're going to talk about Attack on Titan, specifically the final season, part 1, because it just ended in the anime today. So, what were your thoughts on this season, Chelsea?
So, my thoughts on Attack on Titan are kind of mixed, because if you listen to the previous episode where we mentioned Attack on Titan, the thing that you have to know about me is that I am not really a huge fan of Attack on Titan. And let me preface this entire conversation by saying that I don't think it's a bad anime. I don't think it's ill executed. I don't think it has bad animation. I don't think anything like that. I just personally am not invested in the story. So, keeping that in mind, let me say this one more time. I don't think Attack on Titan is a bad anime. I just don't like it.
I'm glad you put that disclaimer in there. Obviously, I am the opposite. I think Attack on Titan is great, but I also took the time to go back and rewatch all the previous seasons so it would actually make sense to me what exactly is going on, because you forget a lot of stuff because there's so much break period between seasons. And last week, I actually went ahead and read the rest of the manga, so I've read the whole story minus the final chapter, which comes out early next month.
Yeah.
So for me, I've gotten the story and it seems pretty good holistically, and I was enjoying the story before, which is why I read the manga. And for anybody who wants to read the manga, it is available on Crunchyroll. So if you have a Crunchyroll subscription, you can read it there. I didn't know that, but once I found out, I thought it was cool, so I just figured I'd share that with you guys in case you're interested and don't want to wait until the final season part 2 sometime next year.
Yeah. And so I'm glad that you brought up the fact that you went back and you read the manga and you watched it again from the beginning, because I feel like watching it in real time, it just didn't do it for me, because it's kind of like if you only watched one episode of The Promised Neverland every 6 weeks. There's no way you'd keep up with, and I'm talking about season 1 because season 2 doesn't exist for The Promised Neverland. We're just gonna claim that. But
yeah,
it's like you can't keep up with everything that's happening. And because Attack on Titan, when we first started it, I thought it was just like this really crazy shonen about this young kid who wants to go out and fight the monsters outside the walls. And that is not what Attack on Titan is. It is a lot deeper than that, and it's very political. But to understand all the political twists and turns and the plot twists and things like that, you really have to be aware and catch up to everything that's happening. And you really can't do that if you're like me and you're just watching it one time through as the episodes release.
Yeah, there's so much gap in between the episodes. It's clearly not the best way to experience Attack on Titan, for sure. But once you can get it holistically, I think it's pretty good. I kind of equate it to like the way it comes out. It's like, imagine you get a book, but they tell you, you can read the first 2 chapters, and the next year I'll give you the next 2 chapters, and next year I'll give you the next 2 chapters. It's like, even if it's the greatest book of all time, you're not going to like that book. You're not going to be able to really appreciate that book the same way you would if you could just sit down and read the book. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And since I was able to sit down and read it, I can kind of see the whole story, and I can see how good it is. But I can also see your point of view, having not went back to redo it, which you shouldn't have to do that in order to keep up with the story. But because it's such a complex story and there's so much happening and so many little details and nuances, it just takes a lot to keep up with Attack on Titan. And when they have breaks as large as they have, when it's airing, I understand where you're coming from. But if anybody is out there who has not started Attack on Titan, first of all, I'd recommend waiting until the end of the final season part 2, and
which
then
isn't
just
coming out until next year.
Yeah, wait till next year, binge the whole story, or binge the story and then read the manga. That way you can just get all of the story.
Or actually read the manga and then watch the anime.
Yeah, you can do that too. It would be great. The anime actually doesn't have any filler, so you're not really. It's just reading the story in a different medium versus the anime and the manga versus there being actual changes, which they usually do with anime. So that's nice.
Yeah, but I do think that Attack on Titan is one of those anime that will age well. The reason being, it's a separate world that isn't reliant upon current events or things that are happening, and there aren't a bunch of things in it that would necessarily age the show. And by that I mean there's no like modern technology that we're familiar with that it's like, oh, if you see, you know, a flip phone or something in an anime, you know that, okay, this was probably early 2000s when they created this.
Or if you see a tape player, a cassette player, or like Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, if you see a cassette player or a VHS player, or, you know, they're talking about tapes, or even the fashion that they're wearing. You know, there are a lot of things that can sort of date an anime, even if the animation quality and the story stay up to par. But I think that Attack on Titan is one of those anime that, even though, like I said, personally, I don't care for it for the reasons that you just explained. I just don't want to go back to the beginning and have to rewatch it in full to get the whole gist of the story. It's just not something that I want to spend my time on. Not saying that it would be a bad binge. It's just, you know, after you watch something the first time and you know the plot twists that are coming, but you can't really remember how they place into the story. Like, it's still close enough that I remember certain things that happened, but it's also far enough away that I don't remember all the details that I need for the impact of everything that's happening. I think in isolation, the story is intriguing. I just don't get the full effect of it because I don't know. Well, I'm not saying I don't know. I don't remember what happened in the earlier seasons, and because I'm not willing to go back and rewatch it just for the sake of knowing what's going on in this current season, it's just kind of like watching a movie when you have no idea what the plot is, you know, but you still appreciate it because you're like, oh, this is interesting, wow, that's kind of crazy. But at the same time, when other people are like, oh my gosh, because, you know, like some character comes back.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching the sequel to a movie when you didn't watch the first one.
Yeah, or it's kind of like watching what's that movie, The Avengers with Thanos, but you didn't see any of it's like watching Infinity War, but you never saw any of the previous MCU movies. It's like, it's a good movie in isolation and you can enjoy it in isolation, but if you had watched the previous movies and you understood all the little things and how we got to this point and the things leading up to it and the things that the characters are referencing, then you get a different experience.
Much greater impact, which is why Marvel's made billions.
Exactly. And so
it's also why people watch all of their movies, even ones that they don't think they will like.
Yeah. And I think Attack on Titan has the ability to do that once all the episodes have aired. I think it'll be one of those anime where you can go back and rewatch it from beginning to end, especially once you get some distance between you and it and you don't like starkly remember every single plot twist that ever happened. I think
once it's holistically done, you can actually go back and rewatch it, and you will get rewarded for rewatching it. You will pick up on things that you couldn't have picked up on the first time without knowing future knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a great rewatch or reread, depending on however you decide to consume the story. I feel like Attack on Titan will be like, I was about to say Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. As in, you know, it'll be one of those staple anime that you can go back and you can binge and it'll be a great story and you'll really enjoy it. I feel like Attack on Titan in the future, it'll be one of those type of stories where you can go back, it'll be a great story, you can read it, really enjoy it, you know, because we enjoyed Full Metal Alchemist all in one go because it was done when we started it, you know. Same thing with Hunter x Hunter and, you know, anime like that.
I don't know if I would ever say that Attack on Titan would be a staple, only because the way
it's a different type of story.
It's a different type of story, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is really for everybody, and Attack on Titan is not for everybody.
No. You have to be into the political intrigue and
but also the grotesqueness of the anime. It's not for the faint-hearted. If you don't like blood, if you don't like gore, if you don't like death, then this anime is not going to be for you. And
definitely not.
You know, Full Alchemist Brotherhood, I feel like for an anime to be called a staple anime, it has to be one of those things where it's just like, and it's such a vague thing, right? But I feel like it's one of those anime where other people who watch anime are like, oh, you've seen this, then we can talk about anime. Versus being like, oh, you've only seen something like one anime and it's really mainstream.
If you've only seen My Hero Academia, you haven't really seen anime. You've just seen My Hero Academia.
Right. And I feel like Attack on Titan is like a certain, I don't want to say like hierarchical level of anime because that's very classist and I don't subscribe to that kind of mindset. But I also feel like
it's for a different type of watcher.
That's for a different type of watcher. If you're Attack on Titan, I would say is not for the casual anime watcher who watches very mainstream anime. Even though Attack on Titan